A Mãe Desesperada que deixou seu filho na porta do CEO. O que aconteceu no primeiro dia. The wind howled through the empty streets, a chilling whisper of secrets yet to be uncovered. It was a grey, drizzly morning when Mia, a desperate mother, approached the towering glass building, the headquarters of one of the most powerful CEOs in the city. Her heart pounded, each beat echoing her fear. She clutched her son's small hand tightly. The warmth of his palm against hers might as well have been the last flicker of hope in a world gone dark. Beneath the shadows of high-rise buildings, she made a choice that would haunt her forever. Mia had tried everything. Hospital visits, therapy, support groups. But today she stood there with a letter in her pocket that could change everything, a letter pleading for help. Security guards eyed her suspiciously. They had seen plenty of crazed people ranting about their dreams, but Mia? She was filled with desperation that seeped from her very core. This was not a stunt, this was her last resort. With a trembling breath, she knelt in front of the grand entrance. The city buzzed around her, oblivious to the storm inside her heart. The eerie silence spoke louder than any scream. Mia looked around. Did anyone notice? Did they see the tears glistening in her eyes? She did not care. All that mattered was getting her child the help he needed. Or was she just about to make everything worse? The air thickened with tension as a gust of wind blew past, slapping her against the cold, hard ground. And then, it happened. The massive doors swung open, and a group of sharply dressed executives spilled out, laughter echoing in contrast to her silent despair. Would they understand? Would they care? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the laughter peeled away, Mia registered the sudden change in atmosphere. A young woman, disheveled but fierce, looked back at her with wide eyes. There was something familiar in her expression. Recognition? Fear. As the chaos unfolded, the world around Mia faded. All she could see was the one decision that had led her here. The whispers of passing executives drowned in her thoughts. What would she do next? Would she push forward, or turn back? Would the CEO even acknowledge her plea, or would she again fade into the city's anonymity? The answer loomed closer as the young woman hesitated, caught between duty and curiosity. Desperation hung in the air like a thick fog, threatening to swallow everything whole. What was about to happen next? And what would Mia sacrifice to find out? Mia's breath quickened. The young woman was edging closer, uncertainty painted across her features. Time seemed to stretch, the air buzzing with electric tension. What would it take for someone to understand her pain? Maybe, just maybe, this could be her lifeline. Please, Mia's voice trembled, breaking through the noise of the bustling crowd. The woman paused, the laughter of the executives fading into the background as a moment of stillness settled between them. I need help, for my son. Her plea hung in the air, thick with desperation. The woman bit her lip, glancing around as if weighing the consequences of getting involved. But clarity sparked in her eyes, and she stepped closer, lowering her voice. Where is he? He's right here, Mia whispered, gesturing to her son, whose wide eyes mirrored the anxiety she felt inside. She watched the young woman absorb the sight, her heart racing at the thought that maybe there was a way to cut through the chaos, to find a path to salvation. Just then, a voice sliced through the silence, cold and commanding. What's going on here? It was a guard, stern and unyielding. Mia felt a cruel tightening in her chest. Panic swirled in her mind, the very thought of being forced to leave sending adrenaline coursing through her veins. Before she could articulate her thoughts, the young woman stepped forward, dropping her gaze to the concrete below. I know them. Let me talk to her. Mia's heart soared with hope. Was this it? She could see the guard hesitating, confusion flickering in his eyes before he nodded curtly, allowing them both a moment. But uncertainty crept back in. What if she was misreading the situation? What if this was another dead end? Still, she watched the young woman mumble something, and the guard's posture softened. "All right, make it quick," he said, crossing his arms but standing slightly downwind, the scent of fresh rain mingling with the metallic bite of worry hanging in the air. "Please," the young woman said, glancing at Mia. "Tell me everything. I can try to help." Mia's mind raced, pouring out her thoughts as tears spilled down her cheeks. She recounted hospital visits, failed therapies, and the weight of isolation she carried. Each confession felt both heavy and freeing. "I don't know what else to do. I can't lose him." The woman's expression hardened, resonating with a familiar pain. "I understand you have no idea what I've been through to get here." But just as hope flickered brighter, an unfamiliar shadow loomed overhead. The CEO himself, a tall figure with sharp features and an air of authority, approached. His presence transformed the scene, an ominous cloud overshadowing the small glimmer of hope. Mia's heart sank. Was this man about to shut her down just like everyone else? The executives shifted, murmurs rippling through the crowd as he looked straight at Mia. "What's your business here?" His eyes narrowed, demanding honesty and urgency in equal measure. Mia's throat constricted. She had fought against every fiber of her being to arrive at this moment, and now, in a split second of vulnerability, it all felt like it could slip away just as easily. "Please, I need your help," she managed, her voice cracking as she held tight to her son's hand, hoping the connection could somehow convey her raw desperation. His gaze bore into her, cold and calculating. For a moment, the world fell silent. Would he turn her away, rejecting the plea of a mother trying to save her child? Or could the truth compel him to see the urgency of her situation? And then, with a voice that echoed through the gloom, he spoke again. "What makes you think I'm the answer?" Mia's breath caught in her throat. How could she possibly answer that? The stakes had never felt higher. One wrong move and it could all be over. As the gravity of the moment pressed down on her, she realized everything hinged on his next words. She had come too far to lose her footing now. What awaited her in this precarious confrontation? Could she unravel the truth from the shadows of indifference? Could a plea, forged from love and desperation, crack the wall of the corporate world? "Because I've never had a choice," Mia said, her voice rising just a little bit, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I've been fighting every day for the life of my son. I don't have anywhere else to turn. You're my last hope." The CEO studied her, the corner of his mouth twisting just enough to betray a hint of curiosity. Around them, the executives were no longer merely spectators. Their attention shifted, leaning in, as if mesmerized by the unfolding drama. The sound of their whispers faded, but the tension thickened, electrified by an unspoken promise of change if only. "Everyone has a story," he replied, his voice dripping with a mix of disdain and intrigue, "but that doesn't mean I can take on every sob story that walks through these doors." "What's in it for me?" Mia's heart pounded. Was he dismissing her? She felt a wave of desperation wash over her like icy water, her words fighting against the emotional chokehold she felt. "My son, he has a rare condition. It's not just about the medical expenses. It's about hope. It's about the chance for a future." She forced herself to look him in the eye, willing him to sense the urgency behind her pain. "People ask for help every day," he replied with icy conviction, folding his arms across his chest. "Why should I believe you?" Suddenly, the young woman beside Mia took a step back, her expression shifting from empathy to alarm. It was as though she could feel the atmosphere turning hostile, darkening like storm clouds gathering overhead. "Sir, with all due respect," she started, her voice trembling, but was swiftly interrupted. "The reserve of compassion I have only stretches so far," he cut in sharply. "You'd better tread carefully here." The weight of his words struck Mia like a blow. What would it take? To beg and plead in a way that would resonate? The world around her felt suffocating, the crowd pressing in curious, judgmental, hungry for a spectacle. She closed her eyes for a fleeting moment, invoking every ounce of energy she had left. She glanced at her son, who stood wide-eyed, innocence tinged by a flicker of chaotic uncertainty. Would he understand her fight? Would he trust her to protect him? Mia, The young woman's voice broke through the fog of despair. Tell him about the research, right? MIA exclaimed, her voice steadier now. There's groundbreaking research happening at that lab across the street. They're developing a therapy that could save lives, my son's life. But they need funding to continue. They need someone strong enough to believe in it, someone like you. This time, the CEO's expression shifted slightly. Was it intrigue? Was it the faintest glimmer of possibility? The air shimmered with it, but MIA sensed his skepticism lingering like a bitter aftertaste. Research needs money, MIA, he stated curtly, eyebrow raised, challenging her. I know. She replied desperately, her words rushing out in a torrent. But with your influence, you could change everything. You could ignite hope for countless families, not just mine. Think of the impact, the legacy. Her breath snagged on her rising panic. She felt every gaze bore into her, and for a moment, it felt as if the whole world had silenced to hear her plea. But the moment cracked like fragile glass when the CEO leaned closer, a hint of intrigue battling with disbelief in his icy blue eyes. And why should I trust you? Why not someone else? MIA felt something dark shift inside her. Because this isn't just about me. It's about the hundreds of children like him, like yours, perhaps? As the words left her lips, she immediately regretted it, a cold chill rattling through her heart. Yet the intensity in the room flickered. Questions danced in the eyes of those around her. For an agonizing moment, silence enveloped them, and MIA's heart raced as she awaited his next move. One flicker of recognition could tip the scales, but what if she crossed a line that could never be uncrossed? What unexpected barriers could she dismantle next? Could this bold move birth a bond, or would it pull them further apart? As she awaited his response, a shivering sense of impending revelation crackled in the air. The silence hung heavy, palpable, with uncertainty thickening the air. MIA could feel the sharp gaze of the CEO piercing through her. His expression was unreadable, but a storm brewed beneath that icy facade. The room felt too small, the weight of every executive's stare pressing down like a lead blanket. What if I told you, he began, his voice low and chilling, that I have my own agenda? That I'm here for something far bigger than a sob story? MIA's breath quickened. What do you mean? The CEO smirked, a glimmer of amusement flickering in his eyes. This isn't just about charity. The lab across the street. It's a part of a larger project, one not openly discussed. I have my reasons for wanting to keep things quiet. Unease rippled through the crowd. Whispers of curiosity flickered among the executives, their interest piqued, as if they were suddenly aware of an unseen danger. And if I were to believe you, he continued, locking his gaze onto hers, what would you be willing to sacrifice for this so-called hope? MIA felt her insides twist at the thought of sacrifice. Anything, she replied, heart racing. I'd do anything for my son, for the children who need this. Anything? He seemed to relish her answer, leaning forward slightly, a predator sizing up his prey. Then you must know what that entails. His words struck her like cold steel. What do you mean? A silence fell again, the tension crackling like static in the room. It was almost electric. The young woman beside MIA trembled, her wide-eyed disbelief mirroring Mia's own dawning horror. The stakes were higher than she'd anticipated, and the darkness of the CEO's smile hinted at a game she hadn't signed up for. I have connections, MIA. Influence that can tear down walls. But I don't grant favors lightly. He took a breath, letting the weight of his next question hang ominously between them. What's the price you're willing to pay? Your secrecy? Your loyalty? MIA shivered. His words hung in the air like a cloud, full of impending rain. Loyalty? I don't know if a single misstep could end this initiative before it even starts, he interrupted sharply. You want me to take a chance on you? You need to earn it. Prove to me you can be trusted. She clenched her fists, trepidation coursing through her veins. What if I refuse? The CEO's gaze darkened, his demeanor shifting subtly, the predator revealing its teeth. Then this conversation ends right here, and your son's hopes along with those of many others vanish in the wind. The world doesn't have space for weakness, MIA. The crowd began to murmur, the tension peaking. Doubt crept in like a thief, gnawing at MA's resolve. Who was this man, really? What game was he playing? The stakes were higher than she could comprehend, and the horrors began to unfold, secrets intertwining with desperation. Think carefully, he said, tilting his head, a mocking glint in his eye. I can give you a lifeline or bury you. You choose. MA's heart thundered in her chest, urgency clawing at her throat. Did she dare to play his twisted game? Could she navigate this maze of morality for the sake of her son? As she stared into the depths of his icy blue eyes, a flicker of determination ignited within her. Tell me what you want, MIA whispered, the words barely escaping her lips. But before he could answer, the door burst open, a figure stepping inside that made the entire room freeze. A familiar face, one she never expected to see again, looming with an all-too-familiar storm cloud overhead. What had just walked into the lioness den? Would this newcomer bring hope or unravel everything she fought for? The door swung wide, revealing a silhouette that danced in the harsh fluorescence of the boardroom lights. Mia's breath caught in her throat. It was Jake, her estranged brother. The man who had walked away from everything: family, responsibilities, even her son's life when it mattered most. Jake, she whispered, barely able to process the shock. He had a hard look in his eyes, a mixture of regret and determination. The collective gasp from the executives echoed like thunder in her ears as Jake stepped forward, his eyes scanning the tense gathering until they fixed on MIA. MIA, I didn't know. He glanced at the CEO, unease creeping into his voice. What's going on here? Do you even care? She snapped, the hurt spilling out like wounds reopened. You left when we needed you. The CEO watched the exchange, an amused smirk curling his lips. Interesting. A family reunion in the lioness den. It seems your loyalty is not the only thing up for negotiation, MIA. The executive's eyes darted between MIA and Jake, the tension thickening like fog. Secrets hovered in the air, threatening to engulf them all. I heard whispers, MIA. Jake's voice softened, an urgency cutting through the storm. That lab across the street, they're not just doing research. It's dangerous. MIA's heart raced. What do you mean? How do you know this? I have connections, he replied, stepping closer, lowering his voice to a near whisper, as if the walls themselves might listen. People in the underground. They're experimenting with lives and not in the way we hope. Every word felt like a blade against her skin. The risk pressed heavy on her chest. She was already teetering on the edge of a perilous decision. And now her brother, the one who had disappeared, returned bearing news that could save or shatter everything she fought for. Do you know what they're planning? She asked, urgency fueling her voice. Jake's expression darkened. I'm not sure, but I'll find out. You have to promise me to stay cautious. This isn't just about you anymore. Anger flared again as MIA squared her shoulders, defiance igniting a fire within her. This isn't just about charity or a hopeful project, it's about my son. They can't just play with lives like it's a game. The CEO chuckled, the sound sickening. Ah, family drama. Am I to assume I have the perfect leverage now? He leaned back, steepling his fingers beneath his chin. Jake's return could add complexity, or perhaps clarity. But know this, MIA, trust is as costly as it is valuable. You will have to choose between your brother's warnings and your desire to save the children. MIA's mind spun. She glanced between Jake and the CEO, the choices coiling tightly around her. Could she trust Jake after all these years? Was he really here to help, or was he another pawn in the CEO's dangerous game? The room remained silent, tension coiling like a snake ready to strike. It felt as if time hung suspended in air, each heartbeat echoing louder than the last. The stakes were higher than she ever imagined, and she'd have to decide swiftly, but there was no way out without deepening the risk. Just then, someone else rushed in, a frantic woman with panic etched across her face. I need to talk to you, MIA. It's about your son. The room erupted in chaos, shouts engulfing the tension. MIA's heart dropped. Another twist. What more could unfold? What fresh peril had just entered her world? Would MIA finally uncover the truth before it devoured everything she loved? MIA barely had a moment to process the frantic woman's words when the chaos around her intensified. Executives were shouting, the CEO was waving his hands, trying to restore order, and Jake stood there, eyes locked onto the newcomer, his expression a tight mask of concern. "Who are you?" MIA demanded, her voice fighting through the clamor, trembling with fear and frustration. "I'm Sarah," the woman gasped, her chest heaving. "I work at the lab, we need to talk. It's important." Panic flickered in her wide eyes, and MIA felt a rush of urgency from her distress. "Important? About what?" MIA pressed, all too aware of the heavy weight of the moment. Everything hinged on this woman's answer. "About your son," Sarah said, glancing nervously at the CEO, who had finally grown still, eyes narrowing into calculating slits. "You have to understand the experiments, they're wrong. They're hurting the kids." The words struck MIA like a physical blow. She felt her heart skip, then race. "What do you mean? What is happening?" "They're not just researching. They're manipulating DNA, trying to create something that shouldn't exist," Sarah stammered, forming her thoughts under pressure. "I overheard conversations about them wanting to test it on children. Your son might be one of them." MIA's breath caught. The sound of lilies being torn from their roots echoed in her mind, a raw connection to her own son, who had fallen into this unpredictable world. "This can't be happening. Why? Who are they?" She felt the room closing in, and her instinct screamed to protect her child. The CEO's laughter cut through her fear like a knife. "It seems the plot thickens, doesn't it? In your quest to rescue your son, can you even look past the potential rewards you might gain? All this commotion, Sarah, is hardly helping shut up," MIA shouted, her voice raw with terror and indignation. "This isn't a game to me. You're playing with innocent lives. Enough." The CEO snapped back, his smile gone. "You're tangled in a web that promises power and influence, MIA. Don't lose sight of that." Jake stepped forward, the protective brother rising up within him. "MIA, we need to find out exactly what's going on, and fast. Sarah, can you gather evidence? Something tangible we can use?" "I can try, but it's risky," she replied, her resolve wobbly but her voice urgent. "They have eyes everywhere." MIA felt her heart race. Infinitely torn between the desperation for her son's safety and the rattling truth hanging just within reach, she remembered the promise she'd made herself: nothing would stop her from saving him. Determined, she turned to Sarah, "You just need to lead us to the information. We'll figure the rest out together." As the tension swirled, a sudden thought crossed Mia's mind. The whisper Jake had mentioned earlier, "This isn't just about you," echoed louder and louder, merging with every other life at risk. Could they really take down this experiment factory before it consumed everyone? Just then, an alarm blared from outside, drowning the space in a booming siren. Fear prickled her skin as the entire room froze. "What the hell is that?" Jake shouted, leaning closer, trying to catch fragments of news from outside. Mia could feel the dread crawling across her skin. Had they been discovered? In a split second, everything spiraled into chaos once more, but this time, the stakes soared higher than her greatest fears. "What have you done?" Sarah's eyes widened as she pressed against the wall, scanning the horizon beyond the glass. The truth loomed close, but danger was at their doorstep. Would MIA and Jake uncover the horrifying reality behind the lab, or would they face a cataclysmic end just as they began to scrape back the veil? And in that moment, all MIA could feel was the weight of everything teetering on the brink. What unseen horrors awaited them outside those walls? The sirens screamed like the wails of the lost, echoing through the sterile building as MIA's heart raced. She glanced at Sarah's panic-stricken face and then to Jake, whose expression had hardened, preparing for whatever was to come. "Everyone, move!" shouted the CEO, his authoritative voice cutting through the chaos, yet MIA caught a flicker of fear beneath his bravado. "We need to secure the building." Secure the building? A million thoughts swirled through MIA's mind as she felt urgency surge through her veins. Was this lockdown due to their discovery? Or had they triggered a secret alarm? "They know we're here," Sarah whispered, clutching Jake's arm. "They might be coming for us. What do we do?" MIA's voice trembled, the weight of her son's safety colliding with the desperation of the situation. "We need to get to the data center," Jake said, determination flooding his words. That's where they store everything. If we can get the files, we can expose them. The chaos intensified, voices shouting directions as men and women rushed past them in a frenzy of fear. MIA felt cemented to the spot, the stakes of their battle unfolding in vivid clarity. What if they catch us? Then we fight, Jake said, squeezing her hand. For Tommy, we have to. With a burst of resolve, MIA nodded, adrenaline propelling her forward. They moved against the tide of panicked employees, navigating the sterile halls that now felt like a labyrinth of impending doom. As they tore through a hallway, the lights flickered ominously overhead. Sarah glanced back, her eyes wide with terror. They're locking the doors behind us. MIA's pulse quickened. They needed to push ahead. This way, she shouted, guiding them towards a side door marked staff only. They ducked inside just as the echo of footsteps rang closer. Inside the cramped room, they found themselves in a storage area. Shadows loomed around them from stacks of boxes filled with equipment and files. With only the soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, they could hear the pounding of their own hearts. This is where they keep everything, Sarah breathed, moving to a desk piled with folders. Her fingers brushed through the files, throwing them aside in haste. I need to find the access codes. MIA, we need a distraction, Jake said, his eyes darting to the door. Those footsteps weren't far off. I can't believe this is happening, she whispered, guilt and fear waging war within her. She had brought Jake and Sarah into this madness, but now there was no turning back. They were in too deep, standing on the precipice of danger. Suddenly, the door rattled violently before swinging open. A guard stood there, eyes wide and enraged, brandishing a baton. Stop right there. Emia's heart plummeted, adrenaline rushing through her like wildfire. Run! She screamed. Jake didn't hesitate. He pushed Sarah ahead, urgency flooding his movements. MIA followed, instinct blurring the edges of fear. They dashed into the dark corridor, their breaths heavy, each step echoing against their resolve to protect their own. Down here. MIA pointed to a fire escape stairwell. It felt like the only path to safety. As they barreled down the stairs, the cacophony faded into a tense silence. I hope we're heading in the right direction, Sarah panted. No turning back, Jake breathed out, the expression of determination never leaving his face. The floor trembled beneath them, a distant rumble echoing through the walls. Emia's heart raced as she glanced back, every instinct screaming that the dangers they faced were just beginning. What horrors awaited them in the lower levels of this hellish fortress? And just as another wild siren wailed, the reality of the experiments they hoped to expose loomed, darker than she could have ever imagined. They descended the staircase, the air growing colder with each step. MIA felt it creeping into her bones, a chill that wasn't just from the temperature but from the anticipation of what they might encounter below. Each thud of their feet echoed like a warning bell, but dread clawed at her, propelling her forward. Where is this leading us? Sarah gasped, her breath coming in ragged bursts. To the data center, Jake urged, his voice taut with urgency. We just have to get to the 5th floor. Did you hear that? MIA stopped suddenly, sensing a shift in the atmosphere around them. The hum of the building, the very heartbeat of it all was gone. An oppressive silence weighed down on them, thick enough to stifle breaths. What? Jake asked, his brow furrowed. I don't know, it just feels wrong. Mia's skin prickled. She glanced over her shoulder as she heard muffled voices resonating from above. They weren't alone, and the guards were closing in. Panic threatened to grip her, but MIA fought it back. She had to be strong. For Tommy.in the dim light of the stairwell, they pressed on, their bodies tense with fears unspoken. As they reached the 5th floor, an ominous light flickered on, illuminating a narrow hallway lined with heavy, reinforced doors. A sense of foreboding washed over them like a wave as they approached the nearest door, which had a large, rusty sign that read authorized personnel only. This is it, Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. He extended his hand toward the keypad, glancing back at MIA and Sarah. Stay close. We can crack this. Mia's heart thundered. Every nerve in her body screamed for action, but as she watched Jake's fingers dance over the numbers, a deep unease settled within her. The potential consequences of what lay behind that door weighed on her chest like a lead blanket. Wait, she hissed. What if they have security measures? What if we trigger alarms? We can't afford to be caught. Do you want to save Tommy or not? Jake shot back, urgency fueling his response. We have to take the chance. We might not get another one. Before MIA could respond, the door slid open with a heavy mechanical sound that resonated down the corridor. A blast of cold air swept over them, the inside illuminated by buzzing fluorescent lights. MIA felt her breath hitch. They stepped through the threshold, and what they encountered inside was a scene that seared into their memories. Rows of computers lined the walls, their screens filled with data streaming furiously. Large glass tanks stood ominously in the corners, with shadows moving inside shadows that looked too much like prisoners. It was a holding area. Each tank appeared to contain something alive, something suffering. What is this place? Sarah stammered, horror etched on her face as she took in the nightmarish scene. Emia's heart sank. This isn't just a data center. It's a lab. They're experimenting on people. A piercing cry echoed from one of the tanks, sending jolts of fear through MIA. Her instincts kicked in. We can't stay here. We need to get out. Jake pressed forward, but MIA grabbed his arm. We can't leave without the evidence. Look. She gestured to a console with files displayed. Time isn't on our side. He protested. But before MIA could respond, the lights flickered violently, plunging them into a momentary darkness. They heard the unmistakable sound of footsteps sounding through the hall, urgent and unyielding. Lights flared back on, and a figure stepped into view, a guard, flanked by two others, their uniforms glistening under the fluorescent glare. We found them. One shouted, rushing forward, baton in hand. Panic surged through MIA as she lunged toward the nearest console, frantic fingers trying to download anything she could. I'll buy you time. No. Jake yelled, but she was already moving to distract the guards. The reality of their fight surged in her veins again. She couldn't think of the consequences, only of Tommy. The guards closed in, eyes wide with authority and anger. Emia's heart raced as she shouted, "Come and get me." Then, in a moment of reckoning, she realized this was the line between saving her son and losing everything. Would she be strong enough to stand her ground? Just as the first guard lunged, the power cut again, plunging them back into darkness. Mia felt the world slip away, rising fear tingling at her fingertips. What had she just unleashed? The world snapped back into focus like a camera adjusting its lens, the fluorescent lights blazing overhead with a brutal intensity. Mia gasped as the guard's baton sliced through the darkness, but it missed her by inches, crashing into the console with a loud crack, sparks flying. Over there! One guard shouted, pointing at Jake and Sarah, who were frozen in shock. Mia took that moment to scramble back, adrenaline flooding her system. Go! Now! She yelled, her voice breaking through the adrenaline haze surrounding them. She had to create a path, had to buy them time. Jake's eyes met hers, filled with fear and an unspoken gratitude, but there was no time. He lunged towards Sarah, gripping her arm tightly as they backed away. Let us get to those tanks. Mia shouted, urgency fueling her every move. She dashed toward the nearest glass enclosure, desperate to see what lay within. The guard nearest to her was recovering from his surprise and lunged forward again, but Mia was quicker. She sidestepped, adrenaline surging through her, her heart thudding violently in her chest. She could hear her breath rasping in her throat like a song of desperation. Inside the tank, she caught a glimpse of a figure, pale, gaunt, and wide-eyed, thrashing helplessly against the glass. A chill settled deep within her as recognition washed over her. It looked so much like Tommy. She held her breath, choking on the mixture of hope and dread that clawed at her throat. What had they done to him? No! She screamed, turning to the guard, who was now 2 steps away. Let them go. You can't keep them like this. The guards hesitated, glancing at each other, their training competing with their instincts. It was exactly the moment Mia needed. She charged forward, fists clenched, adrenaline coursing through her veins like fire. Get back! She shouted, flinging herself at the nearest guard. He stumbled back, caught off guard, and momentarily lost his footing. In that split second, Mia snatched the baton from his hand and swung it towards the console. Download. Now. She shouted at Jake, discernible panic sliding into her voice with urgency painted across his face. Jake hurried to the touchscreen, calling up files of the prisoners. Sarah stayed close to MIA, her eyes darting, hands trembling. MIA didn't look back. Instead, she focused on the guard coming at her again. She swung the baton with all her might. It connected with a sickening thud against his arm. A distant part of her felt guilty for hurting him, but there was no room for hesitation. Not now. Just as the guard fell back, the alarm blared, a siren echoing through the entire building, a shrilling alarm that seemed to suck the air from the room. MIA's heart dropped. This time, panic took root in the back of her mind. They were out of time. Finish it. She screamed, but Jake's fingers hovered above the screen, the data transferring painfully. Slow footsteps thundered down the hallway as more guards advanced, and the grip of fear clamped down tighter on MIA's chest. Hurry. They're coming. Sarah grabbed MIA's wrist, pleading, "What now? What do we do?" MIA's gaze darted around the chaotic scene, desperate for a plan. The room felt smaller, walls closing in, prisoners' cries muffled by the alarm. A flicker of movement caught her eye, another tank with a maintenance access panel nearby. Her heart raced. If they could get inside those huge glass walls, they just might pull off a miraculous escape. "Get in," she yelled, pointing at the tank. If they could hide, maybe they could evade the guards. Just as they began to make their move, a heavy boot crashed against the door behind them. The guards were nearly upon them, ready to reclaim their dominion over this horrifying place. "Now," MIA shouted, lunging toward the open hatch. But before they could reach it, the door burst open with a swing, and chaos erupted. Would they be able to slip away in time, or was this the end of their desperate bid for salvation? The door flew open, and the guards piled in like a raging tide, batons raised high as panic turned to chaos. MIA's heart hammered in her chest. In that moment, everything felt like it hinged on a knife's edge. She could see fear mirrored in Jake's eyes, and recognition gripped her where she stood. "Get in," she shouted again, urgency blasting through her voice as she pointed to the tank. It was their only chance. Adrenaline pumped through her veins, igniting her will to fight for her son, for every child trapped behind those walls. Jake yanked Sarah toward the tank as MIA grappled with the nearest guard. She swung fiercely, the baton connecting sharply with the guard's side. He stumbled, and she knew they had to seize the moment. "Just Geo," she screamed, her energy fierce and raw. Jake and Sarah lunged into the tank, slipping through the narrow access panel like shadows escaping a storm. MIA was about to follow when a guard caught her by the arm and yanked her back. "No," she gasped, twisting desperately as he pulled her away from the tank. "Secure her," one guard yelled, his voice thick with authority. A jolt of panic shot through her as she felt the grip tighten around her wrist, but just then, a loud crash reverberated through the hallway. One of the tanks had shattered, glass splintering like shrapnel. A pale figure emerged, a breathless child, eyes wide with fear but not Tommy. MIA's focus flickered between the guards closing in and the boy who had escaped. "Let him go," she shouted, desperation clawing at her throat. The chaos shifted, and in that moment, the guards hesitated, torn between their orders and the unfolding rebellion. "Now," she bellowed, a primal roar escaping her as she struggled against the grip on her arm. Jake's face turned sharp with alarm as he glanced between MIA and the escaping boy. "MIA, come on," he shouted, forcing her to keep her eyes on the task. In a split-second decision, she swung around, surprising the guard enough to break free from his hold. "Run," she hollered, taking the lead as they sprinted towards Jake and Sarah, who were now scrambling inside the tank. MIA dove in just as another guard barreled toward them, baton poised like a warrior's sword. The entrance slammed shut as she crawled inside, pressing herself against the cool glass, fear making her breath shallow. The boy had held on to his own fight, flailing and terrified, he reached out for help. In that moment, they all felt it, the oppression of a place designed for cruelty. MIA turned to Jake, their eyes meeting with the shared understanding of fighting against the impenetrable. "We need to find Tommy," she gasped, urgency igniting another flame of determination. "But they had to escape first. Let us get to safety," Jake breathed, resolve hardening in his expression. "We'll find the others, we're not leaving anyone behind." The cacophony of shouting guards echoed in the distance as MIA's heart raced. The room felt like a prison that was tightening its grip, the cries from the escapees outside amplifying the weight of her actions. The glass around them felt like a fragile shell, but as the guards scrambled, MIA gripped Jake's arm. "We can't just sit here," she urged, her voice catching as adrenaline surged through her. She had come too far, faced too much pain, to be silenced now. "I'll create a distraction," Jake declared. "Just get ready to move." MIA's heart sank. "What? No. You can't," but Jake pressed a finger to his lips. "I'll be fine. Just wait for my signal." Panic gripped MIA as he squeezed her hand, his eyes brimming with determination. She couldn't accept losing him again, not like this. They were fierce against the darkness together, a unit forged in pain and love, but Jake was already slipping away, moving towards the doorway. MIA felt a shiver of desperation ripple through her. "Jake, no," she shouted, not caring if her voice drew the guards closer. But he was already gone, blending into the darkness beyond the tank, a shadow on a mission. Sarah clutched Emia's arm, eyes wide with fear. "What do we do?" "Wait, you have to trust him," MIA whispered fiercely. Feeling fear and hope collide within her. "He'll come back. He has to." Outside, chaos reigned, but the sound of glass shattering pierced through the command of liberation amid the shrill cries for order. "Go. Now," Jake shouted as he skidded back into view, frantic but alive. "Get out through the panel." The air turned electric as MIA and Sarah darted for the exit. Just as they slipped free, they heard the guards yelling, but they didn't dare look back. They raced down the hallway, the weight of fear a relentless tug against their souls, but accompanied by the fire of hope. MIA couldn't breathe without wanting to scream. Not yet, she reminded herself fiercely. She couldn't falter now. If there was even a chance to save Tommy, they had to keep moving, keep fighting. They burst through the door, emerging into a stark corridor leading toward freedom, but danger still loomed on the edge. And as they sprinted, a thought seared into Emia's mind. Whatever it took, they would not be lost to the shadows again. And just as they rounded the corner, the sirens blared louder, alarms ringing out, an echo of terror that summoned a surge of adrenaline through every last drop of strength in MIA's body. They could take back the lives shattered by fear, one step closer to the truth of the frail chains binding them. "Together," she shouted, pushing forward, the terrified children's cries haunting her, driving her to fight for life. But where would they go? What awaited them in the real world beyond? Nothing mattered but hope, the shadows fading behind them as they snagged every ounce of will to rise against the tide, clawing up through the depths of darkness. They made the choice, in that perilous moment, to embrace fear and forge their paths toward the light, resonating with the promise that they would overcome even the darkest of struggles. Now, it was time to finally break free. Listen, that was wild. If you made it this far and enjoyed the ride, there's something you need to do right now. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now, your support fuels all our creative journeys. And flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this captivating end. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You know how important it is to stand with the truth. Let's keep this momentum going.